As we mentioned a couple of minutes ago in our news, a Dallas family has been awarded one of the biggest sums of money ever after the death of their child at a daycare center. It's not likely the family will ever see any of that money because the daycare is shut down. That was the All in the Family Daycare Center in Oak Cliff. Joining me now to talk about this case, Rob Crain, who represented the family. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Can you just, for people just kind of catching up on the story, I know that there was news about it over the weekend, but maybe go back through the story and tell us about the tragedy that occurred there.
You bet. Roger was a 7.5-month-old baby boy. He'd been going to this daycare since he was about 4 weeks old. Mother and father, wonderful folks out in Oak Cliff. The daycare owner was actually the one who picked Roger up on this day and swaddled him, placed him in an adjacent bedroom from the crib room, and set him on his side, swaddled on an adult bed.
Now, when you say swaddled, you mean really tightly wrapped or packed, right, in a blanket?
Correct. As all the parents out there know, with newborns especially, not so much 7.5 months old, but with newborns, when they're fussy, you'll oftentimes want to swaddle them because it gets them all wrapped up. Their arms are tied in underneath the blanket. Their legs are all tied up in the blanket. It gives them that soothing feeling like they were in the womb still with their mom.
Right.
So the daycare owner placed him on his side on an adult bed, then left the room and shut the door. No monitors, no nothing, left him there for 2 hours. And you might imagine a 7.5-month-old, you put him on his side like that, teetering, he's going to go one way or the other. And he rolled over on his face and unfortunately asphyxiated to death.
So is this, now I got to be honest with you, and I have a son, and I have two sons and two grandsons, and, I've been around babies, but this is the first I've ever heard of this swaddling problem. Is this something that certainly a daycare center should have been aware of?
Yes, there's no question. The regulations going back over 10 years ago have made it very clear that for daycare providers, they're to always place children on their back in a crib with snugly fitted sheet and not swaddled. Regulations as to swaddling went actually into place about 3 months after Roger died. However, the standard of care was well before that, before it ever hit the books, was you do not swaddle a child. And darn sure don't put them on their side in that kind of a situation. So this was very clear.
What was the defense argument about this?
Well, that's part of the problem. The jury got upset. Obviously, you can see with $142 million, but the daycare owner had lied following the police arriving and told the police that she had placed that child on his back when she hadn't. She, through her lawyer, changed her story and I think told the truth that the child was on its side. But when at trial, she went back to her original lie and said, no, I put the child on my back. And the jury just didn't buy it.
So the interesting thing about this case at this point, aside from the tragedy and the terrible loss for your clients, Zach and Heather Lytle, and the loss of their son, but you asked for $7 million award from the jury. The jury turned around and came back with $142 million. How does that happen?
Well, juries are smart. They could look and see this home daycare facility. It's licensed by the state, but they could see that this person was not going to be able to afford $7 million or $142 million. And I think in talking with them afterward, they were very clear. They wanted to make a message here, send a message that you've got to follow daycare regulations for the children in our county. And I'll tell you, it's a great thing. You and I wouldn't be talking today. And the big issue here for Dallas County residents is we have a level 1 trauma center in Parkland. And just about every one of the folks who get serious trauma and injury gets sent there. Well, daycare facilities like this that don't have insurance, families are put under financial strain to pay these medical bills, or more likely, Dallas County taxpayers are the ones footing this bill. And it's not just daycare owners. It's in large part, we see this a lot with 18-wheelers. They're only required to carry $1 million flying through Mexico and the United States. And when they hit somebody, sometimes just not one person, it's multiple people, and there's just not enough insurance there. And we're seeing the taxpayers have to foot the bill for these kinds of things.
It does seem like daycare centers should be required to carry a large amount of insurance before they could even be licensed.
Daycare centers are required to carry $300,000, which I think is way too low. But home daycare facilities that, again, are licensed by the state, don't have to carry anything. So we're hoping that we can draw some attention to some legislators here locally that can see that this is really a taxpayer issue, in addition to making sure we're responsible to families.
All right, Mr. Crain, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's very interesting. You've shed a lot of light on the subject. Thank you.
You bet. Good morning.
Rob Crain, attorney representing Zach and Heather Lytle.
It's unlikely a Dallas family awarded millions in the death of their baby will ever see the money. 7-month-old Roger Lytle suffocated to death while at daycare. The owner is accused of swaddling the boy too tightly and leaving him on his side. Prosecuting attorney Rob Crain asked for $7 million in the lawsuit. The jury bumped that to $142 million.
They wanted to make a message here that, you've got to follow daycare regulations for the children in our county. We have a level 1 trauma center in Parkland. Well, daycare facilities like this that don't have insurance, families are put under financial strain to pay these medical bills, or more likely, Dallas County taxpayers are the ones footing this bill.
All in the Family Daycare was a home operation and didn't have insurance.
A Dallas family has been awarded $142 million after the death of their baby boy.
Zach and Heather Lytle sued All in the Family Daycare, claiming their 7-month-old Roger was swaddled too tightly. The boy rolled over onto his stomach and suffocated. Dallas attorney Rob Crain is representing the family.
Regulations going back over 10 years ago have made it very clear that for daycare providers, they're to always place children on their back in a crib with snugly fitted sheet and not swaddled.
Crain said the jury bumped up the award from $7 million to $142 million to get a point across that something needs to be done to better regulate home daycare centers. Kristen Thrower, WBAP News.